BBC Coventry and Warwickshire.
Now, all of this week here on your afternoon show, we're paying a visit to some more unusually monikered towns around and about the world. Yesterday, we went to Goblin Town. There wasn't anything in Goblin Town, not even a goblin. There was a mill, but that was about it. Let's hope today we can find a little bit more civilization. We are off to Monkey Eyebrow, and to tell us all about it is Joe Culver. Hello, Joe.
Well, good morning.
Oh, how are you today?
I'm just feeling wonderful.
Are you, darling? That's nice to know. What is it that's making you feel wonderful today?
Well, usually I'm always at least really good. Today it's cooler than it has been, and I just feel wonderful. It's been up in the 90s and the hundreds here, and very dry. We were in the middle of a big drought, but I love this cooler weather.
Oh, Joe, that's such a... I like it like that too. A little bit more temperate. You'd like it here, Joe.
What's your temperature?
At the moment, let me have a look, darling, for today's highs. So it's back in the 70s, and that's quite warm for us.
Okay, yes, I would like that. I'm one of those people who I can run around in freezing weather in shorts and short sleeves, but I don't like heat.
You don't like heat? Joe, you're in the wrong place, love, there, aren't you? Monkey's Eyebrow, because you're deep in Kentucky.
Well, yes, but in the winter we have very cold winters, but we also have very hot and humid summers. And that's because Monkey's Eyebrow is just south of the Ohio River at the western tip of Kentucky, a few miles from where the Ohio runs into the Mississippi River. And so it's really humid here.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Is that... Well, it would be too dry to produce wine, wouldn't it? Because normally sort of that warmth and moisture would be good for crops. But you say you're having a few problems at the moment with a drought, Joe? Yes.
It's been one of the driest years we've had, and so the farmers are losing their corn crops, and the soybeans, some of them are looking okay, some are not so good.
Oh, dear. Well, let's keep fingers crossed for better. It's the same all over the world. Everybody's having crazy weather, aren't they?
It seems that way.
Now, tell me about Monkey's Eyebrow. What or who is in Monkey's Eyebrow?
Well, it's kind of hard to determine exactly who is in Monkey's Eyebrow because there is no set boundary. You sort of self-identify as to whether you live in Monkey's Eyebrow or not. I guess, depending on where you would say Monkey's Eyebrow is, that there's somewhere between 10 and maybe 30 people who live here. And you have to bear in mind, too, that this whole county that I'm in is a rural, farm-based county. It's a total area of about 708 kilometers square, and a total population of 8,250, roughly.
Oh, right.
The whole county.
In the whole county. Gosh, that's quite small for a county, isn't it, in terms of population?
Well, yes, but again, it's because so much of the land is taken up with farming.
That makes perfect sense. So why is it called Monkey's Eyebrow, Joe? Do you know?
Well, there's a number of stories. My favorite is that if you look at a map of Kentucky on the west end, as I just described, where the Ohio River comes around into the Mississippi, it would resemble the profile of a monkey's face. And if a monkey has an eyebrow, then the community of Monkey's Eyebrow is about where that is.
That makes perfect sense.
Now, there's other stories. There's one that I heard that talked about a steamboat sinking in the Ohio River near here, and a monkey ran out of it and hid in a tree. I don't know if the monkey was guiding the steamboat or what it was supposed to be. And then there's another version that a lady told me. Diana Yancey said one of her ancestors years and years and years ago was clearing some land north of a nearby town of Bandana, and he had a wagon and a team of mules. The wagon was loaded with timber, and it got stuck in the mud, so he had to walk all the way back to Bandana to get help. Then someone asked him, said, well, how deep is a wagon mired up? And he supposedly said, well, it's about as deep as a monkey's eyebrow. Now, one reason that I don't think that story is true is because I don't think anybody here would have chosen an eyebrow as the part of anatomy. They would have gone a little bit farther south.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, right. Well, you'd use that kind of phraseology.
I suspect really the true story involves some people standing around and drinking a little bit more than they should have.
I think, Joe, that makes more sense. I'll be honest. There are probably a few people.
That's been over 100 years ago, by the way. We've had that name since around the first part of the 1900s.
Really? Oh, gosh. So it's quite an old place in sort of US history terms. It's quite an old place. So who lives there, Joe? If it's an agricultural community, I know here in the UK you get the sort of same families living in a place for a long time. Is it the same in Monkey's Eyebrow?
Well, largely that's true. There a lot of the older families that were here and had fairly small farms. A lot of those folks are dead now, and people are farming much larger farms. Now, for example, the place where I live, one of my mother's sisters married Herman Tilley, and right after World War II, they bought 50 acres here at Monkey's Eyebrow, and they lived on this land and farmed it with a mule, and just very primitive, and they could support themselves with 50 acres. I have a son-in-law who farms, and he's farming somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 acres. And to make a good living now farming, you have to have a much larger farm.
Right, okay, so that makes perfect sense. And in terms of, leisure time, what do you all do, Joe, as a community in your downtime when you're not farming?
Well, if you really want to do something and have some entertainment, you get in your car or you pick up truck and go somewhere else.
Oh.
Yeah, or you can stand around and lean on the fence and talk about how much rain you need and see how the crops have grown. There's not a lot to do here. During certain seasons, we can drive just a couple of miles. There's a Ballard County Wildlife Management area, and there's hunting and fishing there, and in the fall months you can see bald eagles. There's lots of deer and wild turkey, things like that.
Wild turkeys?
Yes.
I've never seen a turkey in the wild, Joe. Is it pretty much the same as a captive turkey?
Well, captive turkeys mostly are white. The wild turkeys are more brown. Interestingly, I was bringing my granddaughter home yesterday, and we came around a curve, and I had to hit my brakes not very far from here because there was a flock of probably 15 wild turkeys standing right in the road, and I didn't want to run into them. They're a fairly large and dense bird.
No, they always see you were worried about them causing damage to your vehicle more than anything else.
Well, it could damage the vehicle. Plus, I didn't want to run over a bunch of turkeys.
No, well, you wouldn't want to run over a bunch of turkeys, do you? No, I don't think that would be very fair. Joe, listen, thank you so much for telling us all about where you live there in Monkey's Eyebrow in Kentucky. I can't tell you what a pleasure it's been to meet you, and I hope we get the chance to speak to you again in the future.
Well, I hope so too, and I hope that some of your listeners come by. There's probably not a lot of people from England who have found their way to Monkey's Eyebrow.
No.
Although my ancestors came from England in the 1630s.
Did they?
I guess you could say that some English people have been here.
Well, you're practically English anyway.
I guess so. It's only been 400 years.
That's nothing. That's nothing in between friends. Well, look, I tell you what, we'll make you an honorary Coventry kid, just in case anybody checks your credentials.
Well, and all of you people can be honorary Ballard Countyans and residents of Monkey's Eyebrow.
We'd really enjoy that. Thank you so much, Joe Culver. I actually love you from Monkey's Eyebrow, in Kentucky. He's the nicest man in the world.
Blue moon, blue moon.
We can only play one song, really, after paying a visit to Kentucky. Monkey's Eyebrow, to be precise. And what a lovely man he was. Right, it's very nearly 4:30.
BBC Coventry and Warwickshire.